Welcome back to the AQS studio, and we're here for lesson 3 in the Quilting with Triangles class. Now, I have to back up just a little bit because Bonnie made a mistake. And the size squares that we need for the quarter square triangles, it said in lesson 1 that it should be an 8-inch square, and it really needs to be a 9-inch square. So I want to tell you, if you've already printed it, what you need to fix, and that is under the light green or the light teal, it should be one 9-inch square for the quarter square triangles. That's the QST. In the gold, it's one 9-inch square for the quarter square triangles. And in the red or the dark blue, you're going to cut two 9-inch squares. And so if you hadn't printed it before now, then everything is all right in the computer. We fixed it. But if you've printed it before, you need to go back and fix that. So today we're going to start with making half square triangles to make the quarter square triangle. And so here it is in the quilt that I've already made, and I've sewn up a couple of them in the blue and teal color scheme. And so you can see that this particular square makes the star points. Okay? And that's a block that would be used if you were making Ohio Star or one of the star quilts like that. So, all right, so how do we do this? In lesson 2, we made half square triangles. The quarter square triangle starts out exactly the same way, only we're going to use those 9-inch squares, and we're going to draw our lines diagonally just like we did for just making plain half square triangles. So I've already done that, and you can see that we're using two different color schemes here. You're going to put one teal and dark blue together, and then I have the gold with the dark blue, and you can see that this particular block is 3 different colors. So we're going to attach teal with the dark blue and gold with the dark blue. And we need 4 of these blocks for each of the squares, and we have 4 squares, so we need 16 altogether. That means we can use the multi half square triangle method to be able to make these. So all right, so we're going to sew both directions, and then we're going to cut them apart, and I've already done that. So you can see I have a stack here of teal and blue and yellow and blue. Now I want to show you what happens if I lay this back on here. You can see that when we cut those into fourths, then that means that each one of these will give us 4, okay? All right, well, so then that means we would have 8, wouldn't we? So how do we get them into being the half square triangles joined together to make the quarter squares? And before we do that, we're going to have just a short word from our sponsors.
Scissorman here, founder of Fomori Cutlery. Chances are, if you're watching this, you're a needle artist. And needle artists like yourself from around the world have trusted the Fomori brand as their preferred cutting instruments for the past 20 years. To learn more, go to famcut.com.
Trust the quality of Coates & Clark threads for all your quilting needs. With over 200 years of commitment to quality, selection, and innovation, Coates & Clark is the thread company trusted for generations.
Okay, so now we've cut our half square triangles, and now it's time to assemble them to make a quarter square. So I've taken one of each color scheme, the teal with the blue, and because we have blue in both of these and it needs to look like that, we need to make sure you don't put blue on top of blue. You need to make sure you flip that around. So we need to draw a line to sew this so that we can divide this in half. And you're going to cross over the seam line. So I chose the gold with the blue because it was the lighter color. And so you're just going to lay your ruler on there, and you're going to draw from corner to corner. And again, you want to make sure you don't drag that pencil. Take it from the center out, and you're going to see here that even on this very dark fabric, this Frixion pin shows up. All right, so now we need to pin that together. So to pin it together, I'm going to put two of the corners, because we've alternated the dark blue, you can see that I'm able to match up and nest those seams. So if I pull this back, you should see that that should be perfectly lined up between the gold and the blue. You see that? Okay, so I'm going to put a pin in that. Now, the one place that we really want to make sure that it matches, I'm going to tentatively nest the seam right there, but we want to make sure that the squares are going to match right here in the middle. So you want to pull that back, and if you have to make just a slight adjustment, and I see that I might want to do that, so that that matches up perfectly. Now I can lay this end in, put another pin in, and now we're ready to sew. And before I do that, we'll have one more short word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Tracy's Tables has all of your custom sewing table needs. Visit tracystables.com to see the complete line of unique tables, carts, and shelves. And all of Tracy's tables are made in the USA.
You know, it's never been proven, but we all know that the floor gets 2 inches farther away every year on your birthday. We can help you out with that. You need a design wall. Check us out at offthewallquilt.com.
So now we're ready to sew, and I'm going to sew just like we did for the half square triangles. We're going to sew 1/4 of an inch on both sides of that line that I drew. One of the things that I've learned about this Bernina 770 Quilters Edition machine, and that is that the presser foot automatically goes up and down. And so if you watch as I begin to sew this, you're going to see that the presser foot, when I push on the pedal, the presser foot will drop down, and there we go. And so now I'm going to sew it 1/4 of an inch. Put our thread saver in here. And now it popped back up. And you know, if you do a lot of piecing, I can see that that would be very, very handy. All right, now that I've got that secured, I can get rid of these pins because these squares are not going to go anywhere. And now I'll turn it around and I'll go back the other direction. Okay, so now we'll trim these threads. Well, I kind of caught my thread right there, but I think it's in the seam allowance, so I don't think it's going to make any difference. So the next step will be for us to cut this on the drawn line, just like we did with the half square triangles, and then we'll be ready to press. One of the things I have to tell you about using the ruler magic on the back of the rulers, and that is I laid this down in a pile of the trimmings that I trimmed off, and so you can imagine all the stuff that was on the back of it. So to get rid of that, all you do is go get you some warm soapy water and wash it right off, and it's all good as new. So, all right, so I'm going to trim, oh wow, look. perfect right smack in the middle. Having the nested seams, anytime that you can do that, you will want to do that because that just makes it a whole lot neater to put your quilts together. All right, so let's check the other one. Perfect. All right, so now we're going to press, and again, I'm going to take I'm holding it with the piece of fabric that I want the seam allowance to fall toward. I'm going to set the corner, and I'm going to set the corner, and now we're going to go straight, maybe. Little bulk there in the middle. Again, set the corner, and now we can just slide it with the grain of the fabric. So now we have our quarter square triangles all pressed, and the next step will be to trim them. And before we do that, we're going to have a short word from our sponsors.
I'm Amanda Murphy, and I'm a quilt and pattern designer. The Bernina Q16 is quilting magic. One of the hallmarks of a great quilting experience is when you lose yourself in your work.
Bernina, made to create.
Okay, so you see, by using the 2 half squares, it makes 2 of the quarter square blocks. So we started out with 8 in the color scheme that was blue and gold, and 8 in the color scheme that was light teal and blue, and that will make 16. One of the things you have to remember when you're making half squares or quarter squares, when you put 2 sets together, it makes 2 blocks. So the next thing we need to do is to trim these down, and I'm sure that you have a pile just like this. You'll notice that I don't have those all completely done yet because I decided I'd wait until I got the quarter squares done. So my next task will be to press and trim all of the half squares and all of the quarter squares, and then in our next lesson we will be ready to sew the blocks together. For today's lesson, you only need to finish 16 of the quarter square triangles, get them pressed and trimmed, and have all your half squares ready. And next week, we will be sewing the blocks together. And in that lesson, I'm going to be teaching you how to do chain piecing so that you won't turn around any of the blocks. There are 25 blocks in this particular quilt, 5 across and 5 down. It's real easy to turn those around, and next week we're going to show you how to do that. Till then, happy sewing, and we'll see you next week.